So I have a special treat for everybody today. So if we haven't met before, I'm Stephanie A., and I am the founder of Adoption and Beyond, where we help adopting families adopt the child of their dreams and also help birth mothers who are pregnant and considering adoption for their baby find the perfect family for them. So the special treat I have today is I have Valerie here from New Parent Academy. So I'm going to have her talk a little bit more about what she does and what I love about her, and is the infant care class that she has that is specific for adopting parents. And so we require our families to take this course from her. So I'm going to have her talk more about that so you can see how special it is for you as well. So welcome, Valerie. Appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's talk first about what your experience is, your background, your training, and what makes you this expert.
Yes, I love newborns. The majority of my time is spent with newborns. I am a postpartum doula and a certified lactation counselor. I'm also the mom of 3, including a set of twins. So my journey to adoption, came a little bit differently than a lot of adoption professionals. I haven't adopted a baby, but as a postpartum doula, what I do is work in the homes of new families immediately after they bring their babies home. And so I've been doing that for 10 years and worked with so many families. And it was a few years ago that I worked with my first family who was preparing to adopt, and they were preparing to adopt twin boys. So that was special because
Wow.
I have twin boys.
Nice.
But then through helping them get ready to meet the babies, they were 2 weeks out from the baby's due date when I first met them. And then that adjustment period in what we in the doula world call the 4th trimester, which is from when the baby's born until the baby's 3 months old, helping them during that transition, I learned a lot about what it looks like as a hopeful adoptive parent is preparing to adopt. And they were in a situation where their agency required a certain number of hours of education. And they went to a class at the hospital. I live outside of Philadelphia. I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And they sat in a hospital class with a lot of a bunch of pregnant people and sifted through that information. And it was at that point that for so many people, the journey to adoption comes through infertility. So I think to sit in a room with people, if you're in the home study process, so you're months and months and months away possibly from having a baby, and you're sitting next to people who are like 37 weeks pregnant and so, exhausted and so done being pregnant, and they're going to meet their baby in a few weeks. I think it's challenging, not even to mention that then you're picking through information and it's like, okay, well, for me, that might be a little bit different. And in this situation, that won't happen for us, but we'll probably do it this way. And I don't think it's fair. And so that's when I set out to create adoption specific newborn care.
I think that's fantastic because that was an issue that we had, because I think newborn care is very important no matter how you come to parenthood. And so we found that it was very difficult. We did have a local hospital who did do ones that are specific to adoption, but that's no longer. And so we do find that our families would have to go sit in a room full of pregnant women. And that was really painful for them to have to do that. And like you said, they would have to sort through that information to what applies and what doesn't. So that's why when I found out about your course, I was super excited because number one, it's online. And so families can access it anywhere. So tell me a little bit more about how your class is specific to adopting families and what resources do they get and why families should take yours.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that one thing worth saying is for some reason, some people feel like they should know the information of caring for a baby. Like, shouldn't it just come naturally? And for some people, it's like, why would you know how to do these things? Like, these are things I do all the time, but why would you as an attorney or a teacher know how to burp a baby different ways or bathe a baby? And so I think it's important just to recognize that you deserve to, prepare the same way a family who is pregnant does. But the difference being, if you're pregnant, you go to your 6-month appointment and it's like, okay, now, in your mind, you're like, now I should start thinking about finding a pediatrician. Okay, well, you don't walk through that same journey as you're preparing to adopt. And I think as a result, what I found is that people feel like they shouldn't be doing that, or they don't know when they would do that. And that's an example of one thing that in my program, it's something that I have to talk about differently. There are things like burping a baby, bathing a baby, those things, I'm talking to you the same way. If you're a hopeful adoptive parent, the same way I am, you don't burp a baby differently if you carried it in your body versus if you adopted. But if you're looking for a pediatrician, for instance, you're going to have a different conversation with that pediatrician. It's definitely something you want to do while you're waiting to be matched. After you're matched, your life is a tailspin. You're like boarding your dog and canceling your dentist appointment and booking a plane ticket and doing all of these things. If it's a last minute match, you're not going to start preparing then. And so within the program, I'm talking about things like that you would speak to differently. Talking about bonding with a baby. This is top of mind for so many adopting families, and talking about understanding the way that a baby communicates. You're suddenly living with someone who only cries. That's the way they communicate everything, a newborn. And so as adults, we think crying means like something is horribly wrong, you're in a lot of pain, or, and that's not the case. And so when I can speak to people and say, this baby isn't crying because you're not his birth mother. He's crying because he has a need that's currently going unmet, but let's look at what's happening while he's crying. Is his tummy hard and he's throwing his head back? Is he sucking out his finger and moving his head side to side? We can start to look at things a little bit differently, because I think there can be that spiral that happens if you don't understand things like the baby communicating through crying. It's like you're in this situation and you're navigating this time that is so tricky. And now you're like, is it that he doesn't trust us, or he doesn't like us, or
bonded with us, or
he's not bonding with us. And then as soon as your mind goes there, you're not operating in the best version of yourself. And so I just like to use that time that people are waiting, where you can feel so helpless and you have, you're worried about fundraising and paperwork and all of this stuff. And it's like, let's step aside here and use this time to prepare for life with your newborn. Because then when you're navigating that fourth trimester, there's things that come up that you're not Googling at 3 a.m. You're like, Valerie talked about this. I favorited it. I'm going to go back in and rewatch the video. And you feel reassured because you're prepared.
Right. So the waiting is definitely the hardest part of the adoption process. People think it's the paperwork and the home city and things like that. And I tell you, I promise you, it's not. It's the waiting, because when you're doing those other things, you feel like you're moving the adoption process along. And when you're waiting, you feel very powerless. And so I encourage families to do all kinds of different things during this time. One is join a support group, but also just educate yourself. Take this time while you have it to educate yourself. And we do find that families kind of sometimes don't want to take the time to do the education, but after they do it and then they experience it, they're like, yes, that's what they were talking about. And then that comes back very easily for them to recall. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think people almost, what I've heard is like, they don't want their mind to go there. That you don't want to like jinx the situation or, but let's go there. Let's prepare you so that when you're there and you're navigating these times, you're not getting new information during a time that's already full of emotion.
Stressful. Yes. So tell me what makes your course unique to adopting parents. Like what kind of checklist do they get and things like that would be helpful for them?
Yeah. So some things are like a hotel stay with a newborn. That's something that very first family that I worked with as a doula, they were asking me at that first meeting, like, okay, we're going to be living in a hotel room for a few weeks with twins. What do we need? And I was like, wait, what? I knew nothing about adoption. And I was like, I have to think about this. I'm going to have to get back to you. So, the hotel stay with the newborn, the pediatrician Q&A looks different in there.
I'm going to jump in right here. So the reason why a family would be staying in a hotel is because there's something called interstate compact. So when a family adopts across state lines, they have to stay in that state for a period of time before they're allowed legally to come back over. So that's why there would be a hotel stay. So I want to be sure people understood that.
Yeah, for sure. So hotel or Airbnb, wherever people are staying. And, the way that you're looking for a pediatrician, the questions that you're asking a prospective pediatrician, the 30-day, I have a 30-day must-have list. This is the items that you need for the first 30 days. This is one place that adoption is different than pregnancy. If you are preparing for, you're waiting to be matched, or even if you're matched and waiting for the baby's arrival, my recommendation is not that you're going onto Amazon and looking at the baby registry and starting to check things off.
Right.
That time will come and that will be wonderful. But as you are waiting for the baby to actually get here and for things to finalize, my recommendation is to go off of, I have a 30-day must-have list, and I have like a must-haves and maybes list where things are asterisked, because those are the things that you're going to need, because you don't want to be spending money that you don't need to spend in those first weeks and months. And so I think it's helpful to, you're going to have people in your life that are a great resource for you. Your sister had a baby, your best friend had a baby. That's great. But if the products that they're recommending, baby products are expensive. It is bananas how much things are, but those might not necessarily be things that you need right now. It's not that you never want their recommendation, but it's like, okay, let's look at what you're really going to need. Like on that list, I have that a stroller is optional. If you're looking at the first 30 days, you're going to the pediatrician. I mean, depending on where you live, you might take a walk and you might want a stroller. But if you're really like that first family where they're like, we have 2 babies, we live in Pennsylvania where the revocation period is 30 days. So you're trying to buy as little as possible.
Right.
I'm like, don't buy a double stroller. Now you're $350 in.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think it just helps to understand what you really need.
So the revocation period for families to understand is that sometimes there's a period of time between when a family receives placement of a child and before it becomes more permanent, that the expecting parents can't change, for birth parents at that point, can't change their mind. So that's what the revocation period is. So, as Valerie said, you don't want to necessarily go out and spend, hundreds of dollars during that time when, the adoption may not go through. So understanding those really key important pieces that you need during that time, I think is fantastic. So I know you expanded your course to add NICU. So can you talk a little bit more about that training?
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to say about, like, as we talk about, like, oh, it might, during that time, it might not be finalized. And that is one thing that my course members say is like, you don't want to think about that. Like, do you really want to sit through Amazon registry and be like, I don't know, would we need that? Like, it's not great. So to have someone else doing that, I'm doing that for you. I know the baby world. I am familiar with the adoption world. So here's that. And taking things that feel uncomfortable off of the plate and giving you what you need. So yeah, I did earlier this year add a NICU and drug exposure bonus to the program because it was something that kept coming up, a question that kept coming up. And when I'm asked questions that I don't think I'm necessarily like the greatest expert in that field, that's when I seek outside guidance. And that's what I did with this NICU bonus is I did a training. Some of my course members were there, but it's recorded, and that's what's in the program. Is this NICU expert talked through, NICU etiquette, just frequently asked questions in the NICU, navigating the NICU as an adoptive parent. And of course, these are things that every situation is different. As I talk through, all throughout the program, it's like, if you're adopting with a partner, if you're not adopting with a partner, if you're, same-sex couple, if you're not a same-sex. So it's hard to speak to the exact situation that someone's going to be in.
Right.
But with that being said, it's like, okay, here's what might happen in the NICU. Here's the questions you can ask. Here's your go-to point. If you're wondering, can I hold the baby? When can I hold the baby? Different things like that. And then that bonus also talks about caring for a baby, soothing a baby with drug exposure and how that looks different than a baby that doesn't have drug exposure. Right. Because the reality is you're preparing for a situation that you don't know, as most of the families who come into my course are either in the home study process or they're waiting to be home study approved and waiting to be matched. And people have access until the baby's in their home because I want them to use this time to prepare and then to have the information in front of them later. But you're preparing for a situation you don't know. Most people they haven't been matched. They don't even know the expectant mother. They don't know if there was drug exposure. They don't know, there's some things we might know before birth, but at the time you're preparing, that's why something like the NICU, if you find it, you're matched, you go to the hospital, the baby's now in the NICU. Okay, that's not a time that you're going to start researching NICU. Now you're like juggling all these other things. So it's like, that's where you're like, oh, there's this resource. Even if you hadn't watched it, although most people do, you're going back and you're like, watch that again. Okay, what? Because it's something, it means something different to you when you're really in it. But that's not a time to be online. I talk to people about how online, there's no expiration dates on Google information. There's no credibility. You don't know who knows what they're talking about and who
Right.
doesn't.
Mhm.
Who's sharing information that's outdated or just completely untrue. And so
Right.
this is like, okay, I have this resource. And then there's a members only Facebook group. If you're like, this is coming up for me and I can't figure out what the right answer is, then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, you're in there and I'm in there. Other
Nice.
adoptive parents are in there. So you
That's great.
have these resources right there. You're not Google searching. Google searching is like never my
It's a
road.
rabbit hole, yes.
No,
So
and it's
I know,
scary.
yeah, and the NICU etiquette, I had never really thought about that. So, but yeah, over the last 6 months, 2 of our placements, the babies were in the NICU, and and it wasn't necessarily because of drug exposure for them.
Yeah.
The babies just happened to come early, and one was a special circumstance that they had to take the baby early. So yeah, and then we have one coming up that will probably be NICU as well.
And
So
one of my kids was in the NICU and it was completely foreign to me. It
yeah.
wasn't a world that I was at all familiar with. So talking with this expert and
Mhm.
just being like, gosh, if I would have known that, or, oh, that makes sense. And just having like a different eye and, when you're more prepared, you feel more comfortable. And so that's
Yes,
what my goal
exactly.
is.
I mean, education is power and control in a situation that you really have a lot of limited control in, which is
For sure.
the adoptive process for adopted parents. So tell me about kind of what's been the feedback from families who've taken this course, and what have you heard from them?
So at this point, over 500 people have come through the course. I think we're getting close to 600.
Mhm.
But I love, just recently, actually this week, I sent out an email about like a live workshop, a free
Mhm.
live workshop I had coming out. And I sent it out to everybody who was like tagged adoption in my email. And I said, if you've stepped away from the adoption process or you've been matched, just reply and let me know so I can like not keep sending you things
Mhm.
like you're a hopeful adoptive parent. And I got so many emails from people where like one person said, our child is a toddler now. But one part of our memory of being matched and traveling to meet our baby that really stands out for us is that they had traveled from North Carolina to Pennsylvania. And she's like, as we were traveling, I was like on the app for your course, like replaying videos that we had starred. And, so it's like in that moment where again, you feel helpless. You're like, it doesn't matter how many videos you've watched,
Right.
you get the call and you're like, I don't know, are we ready? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
like the uncertainty is like, what do you want to talk about? And then you go back in there. And
Mhm.
so I hear
Mhm.
that. I got a picture from someone where she was it was a mom who was adopting as a single mom. She was in the hotel room awaiting ICPC and she has like her laptop set up and she has her baby on her shoulder. And she's like, I was rewatching sections and it was so helpful. And that's so
Mhm.
special because it's like, when I
Mhm.
created this, those were the moments that I was thinking of.
Right. That's fantastic. So I would like to thank you so much, Valerie, for meeting with us today. And so how can people get a hold of you, and what links am I going to be attaching down into the resources below?
Sure. Yeah, you can always find me on Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active. I am also active on YouTube as well.
Mhm.
Instagram is where you can usually find me pretty much every day. And below, I will be sure that you have the links for Expecting 101 You're Adopting, which is the program that we talked about, covering everything from things like newborn sleep. How do you get good sleep habits in place from day one, even though you're not sleep training a newborn, infant safety, like CPR, first aid, all those kind of things, as well as, soothing a baby and all the how-tos on video and things like that. That's inside Expecting 101 You're Adopting. And then I'll also give you the link to a free workshop that I have. It's called 7 Things Adoptive Parents Learn the First Week Home with a Baby. And that is just a great starting point, to understand, are the things that I'm saying, are they new to you? Do you want to go deeper in that education of newborn care?
Mhm.
And so that's great as well. The workshop is 1 hour. There's a certificate of completion, and the course is 6 hours, and there's a
Great.
certificate of completion.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time again today.
Thanks, Stephanie. It's great to be here.
Oh, bye.